The Harborview Conference Center was packed. 200 people gathered to celebrate Richard Bennett's 40-year career at Westfield Manufacturing. Banners hung from the ceiling. "Congratulations on your retirement, Richard." Tables were draped in white linens, centerpieces overflowing with flowers. A slideshow playing on 3 massive screens showing Dad's journey from junior engineer to VP of operations. I sat at table 14. Not the family table. Not even close to the front. Table 14 was in the back corner, near the kitchen doors, where servers rushed in and out with trays of appetizers. My sister Brooke sat at table 3 with her husband and their 2 perfect children. My brother Nathan was at table 2 with his fiancée, both of them dressed like they'd stepped out of a catalog. Mom was at the head table with Dad wearing a navy dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Or so they thought. I wore a simple black dress. Nothing fancy. Nothing that would draw attention. I'd learned years ago that being invisible at family events was easier than being the target. The program started at 6. Speeches from Dad's colleagues, video messages from former employees, a presentation from the CEO about Dad's contributions to the company. Dad stood at the podium, beaming, accepting praise and applause like he'd been waiting his whole life for this moment. "I couldn't have done any of this without my family," Dad said into the microphone, his voice carrying through the room. "My wife Margaret, who's supported me every step of the way. My son Nathan, who's following in my footsteps in the engineering world. My daughter Brooke, who's built an incredible career in marketing." He paused. People waited. "And my youngest daughter Claire who, well, Claire's here too." That was it. My entire acknowledgement. 29 years of life reduced to "Claire's here too." Polite laughter rippled through the crowd. A few people turned to look at me, curious about the daughter who didn't merit a real introduction. Dinner was served. Herb-crusted chicken, roasted vegetables, twice-baked potatoes. I ate quietly while conversations buzzed around me. At table 3, Brooke was holding court, telling some story that had people laughing. At table 2, Nathan was networking with Dad's colleagues, already working angles for his own career. At table 14, I was alone except for 2 couples I didn't know who seemed equally confused about why they'd been seated so far from the action. Dessert arrived. Chocolate cake with gold leaf decorations. A toast was made. More speeches. More praise for Dad's legacy. Then came the part I'd been dreading. The gift presentation. Brooke went first. She stood up, microphone in hand, wearing a smile that could light up a stadium. "Dad, Nathan and I wanted to do something special for your retirement. So we pooled our resources and got you this." 2 servers wheeled out a large wrapped box. Dad opened it to reveal a brand new set of golf clubs. Top of the line. Expensive. The room erupted in applause. "These are the same clubs the pros use," Nathan added, standing up to join Brooke. "We know how much you love golf, Dad. Now you'll have all the time in the world to play." Dad hugged them both. "This is incredible. Thank you. I'm so proud of both of you." More applause. More photos. The slideshow paused on a family photo. Mom, Dad, Brooke, Nathan. I wasn't in it. It had been taken at Nathan's engagement party. The one I hadn't been invited to because Brooke said it was family only. Apparently I didn't qualify. The CEO Robert Morrison stood up. "Before we continue, I want to address something. As many of you know, last year was challenging for Westfield Manufacturing. We faced a significant financial crisis that threatened jobs, contracts, and the future of this company." The room went quiet. Everyone knew about the crisis. It had been in the news. Westfield had been on the verge of bankruptcy. "What most of you don't know," Robert continued, "is that we received an anonymous donation. A substantial investment from someone who believed in this company and in all of you. That investment saved us. It allowed us to restructure, to keep our workforce employed and to come back stronger than ever." People looked around, confused. Dad looked confused. "I've kept the donor's identity confidential for over a year at their request," Robert said. "But tonight, with their permission, I want to publicly thank them." My heart started racing. I'd asked Robert not to do this. We'd agreed. Anonymous meant anonymous. But then I caught his eye and he gave me a small nod. "A question. A request." I nodded back. "Richard," Robert said, looking at Dad. "Your daughter contributed something to this company that goes beyond any gift or any career achievement. She saved it." Dad blinked. "Nathan's not in a position to." Not Nathan, Robert interrupted. Claire. The room went silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Dad's face went white. Mom's hand flew to her mouth. Brooke and Nathan turned to stare at me, their expressions shifting from confusion to disbelief. Claire Bennett, Robert continued, invested $2.7 million in Westfield Manufacturing last year when we were facing bankruptcy. She purchased shares, provided operational capital, and asked for nothing in return except that her contribution remain anonymous. She saved over 400 jobs, including your father's position at the time, Richard. 200 faces turned toward table 14. Toward me. The daughter who was here too. The one who wasn't worth mentioning in the retirement speech. I stood up slowly. My legs felt shaky. Robert gestured for me to come to the stage. I walked through the silent room, past Brooke's table, past Nathan's table, past dozens of people who'd barely acknowledged my existence all night. When I reached the stage, Robert shook my hand. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Claire Bennett, the person who embodies what Westfield stands for: loyalty, integrity, and putting others before yourself. Applause started slowly, then built to a roar. But I wasn't looking at the crowd. I was looking at Dad. His face had gone from white to red. His mouth was opening and closing like he couldn't find words. Mom was crying. Brooke looked like she'd been slapped. Nathan had his phone out, probably already Googling to verify what he'd just heard. Robert handed me the microphone. I didn't want it. But he insisted. I'm not really one for speeches, I said quietly. My voice echoed through the room. I love my dad. I grew up watching him work hard, watching him build a career at this company. When I heard Westfield was in trouble, I couldn't just stand by and do nothing. Claire, Dad's voice cut through. He'd stood up, walking toward the stage. Where did you get $2.7 million? I invested it, I said simply. From my business. What business? His voice was shaking. You work in data entry. No, Dad. I own a data analytics firm. Bennett Analytics. We provide consultation services to Fortune 500 companies. We've been operational for 6 years. Last year our revenue was $8.4 million. Brooke gasped audibly. Nathan dropped his phone. I started it when I was 23, I continued. Right after you told me my business degree was worthless and I should just find a nice office job somewhere. I took your advice about working with data. I just built a company around it instead of entering it for someone else. Dad reached the stage, climbing the steps slowly. Why didn't you tell me? I tried, I said quietly. Multiple times. 4 years ago I invited you to my office opening. You said you were busy. 3 years ago I mentioned landing Microsoft as a client. You changed the subject. 2 years ago I tried to tell you we'd expanded to 18 employees. You interrupted to talk about Nathan's promotion. The room was so silent I could hear the air conditioning humming. When Westfield started having trouble last year I reached out to you, Dad. Asked how you were doing. You said everything was fine. You didn't tell me about the bankruptcy. I found out from the news. I turned to Robert. So I called Mr. Morrison directly. Made an offer. Asked him to keep it anonymous because I knew if you found out it was me, you'd refuse the help out of pride. Claire. Dad's eyes were filled with tears now. I've spent my whole life trying to make you see me, I said. Trying to make you proud. But nothing I did was ever enough. Brooke became a marketing director and you threw her a party. Nathan got engaged and you flew his fiancée's entire family in for the celebration. I built a multi-million-dollar company and you told people I work in data entry. Mom had joined Dad on the stage now, both of them standing in front of me. Tonight, before dinner, you introduced everyone in this room to your family, I continued. You talked about Brooke's accomplishments, Nathan's future, Mom's support, and then you got to me. You know what you said? Dad shook his head, tears streaming down his face. You said, my youngest daughter is too broke to contribute anything. She can barely afford her rent. But she showed up and that's what matters. I smiled sadly. You told 200 people that I was too poor to buy you a retirement gift. That I was struggling. That I was the family disappointment. I didn't mean, Dad started. Yes, you did. You've always meant it. Every dismissive comment. Every time you forgot to mention my name. Every time you chose not to ask about my life because you'd already decided it wasn't worth hearing about. I looked out at the crowd. At Dad's colleagues who'd spent 40 years working alongside him. At the Westfield employees who still had jobs because of money I'd invested. At my siblings who looked like their entire worldview had just shattered. I didn't save this company for recognition, I said. I didn't do it to prove anything. I did it because 400 families depended on Westfield surviving. Because people I'd never met needed their paychecks to continue. Because regardless of how my father sees me, I see value in protecting something he spent his life building. Robert placed his hand on my shoulder. Claire's investment didn't just save jobs. She took a significant financial risk on a company that was failing. She believed in us when our own board members were jumping ship. She's been an anonymous partner for over a year, providing guidance and strategy without ever asking for credit. I don't understand, Brooke's voice rang out from table 3. How do you have that kind of money? You drive a 10-year-old car. You live in a tiny apartment. I drive a paid-off car because debt is stupid, I said. I live in a 900-square-foot apartment because I don't need more space. I don't buy designer clothes because I work from home most days. I invest my money instead of spending it on things meant to impress people who don't care about me anyway. Nathan stood up. This doesn't make sense. We would have known. Someone would have told us. Why would anyone tell you? I asked. You never asked about my life. None of you did. You decided who I was and never questioned it. The struggling youngest daughter. The one who couldn't get her life together. The disappointing one. That's not fair, Mom said softly. We love you, Claire. Maybe, I acknowledged. But you've never respected me. And there's a difference. Dad wiped his eyes. His hands were shaking. I'm sorry. God, Claire, I'm so sorry. I know you are, Dad. No. Because you're standing in front of 200 people learning that your assumptions about me were wrong. But you weren't sorry 3 hours ago when you told everyone I was too broke to contribute. You weren't sorry last Christmas when you said I should probably skip the family vacation because I couldn't afford it. You weren't sorry when you forgot my birthday 2 years in a row. How do we fix this? Dad asked desperately. I don't know if you can, I said honestly. I've spent 29 years trying to earn your approval. Trying to make you see that I was worth your time, your attention, your pride. I built a successful company. I saved your employer. I did everything I could think of to prove I was enough. And it was never enough because you'd already decided I wasn't worth seeing. I handed the microphone back to Robert. I need to go. Claire, please, Mom begged. Don't leave like this. I'm not leaving angry, Mom. I'm leaving free. Free from trying to fit into a box you built for me. Free from pretending that your opinion defines my worth. I looked at Dad one more time. Congratulations on your retirement. I'm genuinely happy you get to enjoy the next chapter of your life. Westfield survived and you get to leave with your head held high. That's all I ever wanted to give you. I walked off the stage. The room remained silent as I made my way toward the exit. Just before I reached the doors, I heard Robert's voice on the microphone. Claire Bennett, everyone. The person we should all aspire to be. Applause erupted. But I didn't turn around. I walked out of the Harborview Conference Center and got into my paid-off 10-year-old car. My phone started buzzing immediately. Brooke, we need to talk right now. Nathan, why didn't you ever tell us about your company? Mom, please come back. Your father is devastated. And one from Dad sent 5 minutes after I left. I was wrong about everything. Can we start over? I sat in my car for a long time watching people through the windows of the conference center. Dad was surrounded by colleagues, probably answering questions about his daughter they'd never heard about. Mom was crying, being comforted by Brooke. Nathan was on his phone again, probably looking up my company, verifying every word I'd said. My phone rang. Robert Morrison. Claire, that took courage, he said when I answered. Are you okay? I think so, I said. I'm sorry I made a scene at Dad's retirement party. You didn't make a scene. You told the truth. There's a difference. He paused. For what it's worth, your father had no idea about your success. He's genuinely shocked. I've worked with him for 20 years and I've never seen him like this. That's the problem, I said. He had no idea because he never looked. And I'm tired of making myself small so he won't have to feel bad about not seeing me. Fair enough, Robert said. Listen, the board wants to make your investment public. Make you an official partner. You'd have a seat at the table, voice in decisions. Are you interested? I thought about it. About being tied to something connected to my father. About whether I wanted that. Let me think about it, I said finally. Take your time. And Claire? You saved more than a company. You saved families. That matters more than any retirement party speech. After I hung up, I drove home to my tiny 900 square foot apartment. The one Brooke had called depressing, and Nathan had said wasn't worth the rent. I walked inside and looked around at my space. Minimal furniture. Clean lines. A desk where I ran an $8.4 million company. Walls that had never seen my family because I'd stopped inviting them after the third time they'd made excuses not to visit. I poured a glass of wine and sat on my small balcony, looking out at the city lights. My phone buzzed again. A text from Dad. I looked up your company. The awards. The clients. The growth. I'm reading about my daughter and realizing I don't know her at all. I'm sorry, Claire. I'm so sorry. I stared at the message for a long time. Part of me wanted to forgive him immediately. To rush back and rebuild what we'd never really had. But another part, the part that had been ignored and dismissed for 29 years, knew that forgiveness without change was just another way of making myself small. So I replied, I appreciate that, Dad. But I need time. You spent 3 decades deciding who I was. I need more than one night to believe you're willing to see who I actually am. He responded immediately, I understand. Take all the time you need. I'll be here. I'll wait as long as it takes. I set my phone down and finished my wine. Tomorrow I'd go back to running my company. To managing clients and growing my business. To living the life I'd built in spite of my family's expectations, not because of them. Tonight I'd sit in my tiny apartment in my 10-year-old car's neighborhood and feel something I hadn't felt in years. Pride. Not in proving them wrong. But in proving myself right. Because sometimes the greatest success isn't making people see you. It's seeing yourself clearly enough that their blindness stops mattering. And I finally saw myself. All $8.4 million worth.